The Unseen Path, a motivational story of hope and resilience. Sophie had always been the kind of person who played by the rules. She had her life planned out, from her job to her friends and even her hobbies. But one rainy evening, as she sat in her tiny apartment, sipping her usual cup of tea, an unexpected knock echoed from the door. Confused, Sophie hesitated for a moment. She wasn't expecting anyone. As she opened the door, she found an envelope. No name, no return address, just a plain white envelope lying on her doorstep. Her curiosity piqued and her heart beat a little faster. What could this be? She thought, picking it up and tearing it open. Inside was a single piece of paper that simply read, "Sometimes the most beautiful roads are hidden. Follow the path and you will find the answers." No signature, no indication of who had sent it, just those cryptic words. Sophie felt a shiver run down her spine. It felt almost like a riddle, one that demanded to be solved. The next day, Sophie couldn't get the mysterious note out of her mind. She showed it to her best friend Maya, but even she was baffled. After days of pondering and internal debate, Sophie decided to follow her gut instinct. She had always been so careful in life, but this felt different, almost like an invitation to break out of her monotonous routine. As she packed a small backpack with essentials, she felt nervous yet excited. The note had no instructions, but somehow she knew where to go. The old forest on the outskirts of town. It was a place she hadn't visited since childhood, and the thought of returning filled her with a strange sense of nostalgia. The forest was dense, almost impenetrable, and the winding path seemed unfamiliar. Sophie's footsteps echoed in the silence as she ventured deeper. The air was thick with suspense, and the trees seemed to whisper secrets that only she could hear. But the deeper she went, the more she felt drawn to the heart of the forest. Suddenly, she stumbled upon an old, crumbling stone archway covered in ivy. It looked ancient, as if it had been forgotten by time itself. Beneath it was a small, winding trail that seemed to beckon her forward. Sophie hesitated for a moment, but then took a deep breath and stepped through. As she walked, the path beneath her feet seemed to grow smoother, the surroundings more peaceful. The tension she had felt earlier slowly began to melt away. But just as she started to relax, she spotted something strange in the distance, a small cabin, hidden deep in the woods. Approaching cautiously, Sophie noticed the cabin looked weathered yet cozy. A thin stream of smoke billowed from the chimney, and as she drew nearer, the door creaked open. Inside, there was a warmth that contrasted with the cold, eerie forest. An elderly woman sat by the fire, knitting quietly. Without looking up, the woman spoke, "I've been waiting for you, Sophie." Sophie's heart raced. "How do you know my name?" The woman smiled gently. "The path leads those who are ready to discover something greater than themselves. Sit, child." Still unsure but feeling strangely calm, Sophie sat down. The woman handed her a small leather-bound journal. "This is yours. It's always been yours. You just needed to find it." Confused, Sophie opened the journal to find it filled with blank pages, except for one sentence written in the center. "Your greatest strength is hidden within the journey." Sophie spent hours talking with the woman, who revealed that the journey she had taken was no accident. Life had a way of presenting challenges and mysteries when we need them most. The path was symbolic of Sophie's own life, filled with uncertainty, twists and turns, but leading to something far more beautiful than she could have ever imagined. The journal, the woman explained, was for Sophie to write her own story. The blank pages were a metaphor for the life she hadn't yet lived. Sophie realized that she had been so focused on controlling every aspect of her existence that she had forgotten to truly live. As Sophie left the cabin, the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the forest. The journey had changed her. She no longer felt confined by her fears or her carefully constructed plans. Instead, she embraced the unknown, ready to walk the path wherever it might lead. Weeks passed, and Sophie found herself writing in the journal every day. She took new risks, met new people, and explored parts of herself she had long buried. Her life had shifted from predictable to unpredictable, from mundane to extraordinary. One day she received another letter, but this time she knew who it was from. The woman in the cabin. The letter simply read, "You've found the path. Now, show others the way." With renewed purpose, Sophie decided to share her story with the world, knowing that others, like her, were waiting for their own invitation to step into the unknown. And as she penned the last words in her journal, she smiled, knowing that the journey was far from over. Now let's explore and expand our vocabulary with this story. Monotonous meaning lacking variety or excitement. For example, Sophie's life was monotonous until she received the mysterious letter. Curiosity meaning a strong desire to know or learn something. For example, her curiosity led her to the forest despite her initial hesitation. Nostalgia meaning a sentimental longing for the past. For example, Sophie felt a wave of nostalgia as she returned to the forest from her childhood. Impenetrable meaning impossible to pass through or enter. For example, the forest seemed almost impenetrable as Sophie walked deeper into it. Ancient meaning very old, from a long time ago. For example, the crumbling archway looked ancient, as if forgotten by time. Hesitate meaning pause before saying or doing something, often out of uncertainty. For example, Sophie hesitated before stepping through the archway. Suspense meaning a state of excitement or anxiety about what might happen next. For example, the suspense grew as Sophie approached the hidden cabin. Cautiously meaning in a careful manner to avoid danger or risks. For example, she approached the cabin cautiously, unsure of what she would find. Contrast meaning the state of being strikingly different from something else. For example, the warmth of the cabin was a sharp contrast to the cold, eerie forest. Reveal meaning to make something known that was previously secret. For example, the woman revealed that the journey was no accident. Metaphor meaning a figure of speech where a word or phrase is applied to something symbolic. For example, the blank journal pages were a metaphor for Sophie's unwritten future. Extraordinary meaning very unusual or remarkable. For example, Sophie's life shifted from mundane to extraordinary as she embraced the unknown. Predictable meaning able to be foretold or expected. For example, Sophie's life had been predictable before she received the letter. Renewed meaning restored to a fresh or revived state. For example, Sophie left the cabin with renewed purpose and excitement for life. Journey meaning an act of traveling from one place to another, often with a broader meaning of self-discovery. For example, the journey Sophie took led her to find strength she didn't know she had. If you've ever felt stuck, just remember, your path is waiting for you too. Sometimes, all it takes is a leap of faith. If Sophie's story inspired you, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share this journey with others who need it. Your adventure starts today.